Kelly is a writer whose memoir blog, Gingerbread Guts, reflects the heartbreak, humor, and hurdles of her breast cancer journey. Kelly's experience have fueled her latest project, a year of writing love letters, an inspirational endeavor that celebrates life's connections. Let's all welcome Kelly Hennessey.
Oh.
Yeah. You get the spotlight.
I was thinking, what am I going to do with those notes? All right. This evening, I begin with a word trick. I can take a 6-letter word, C-A-N-C-E-R, and I can turn it into 4 letters, F-E-A-R, fear. Cancer's not a, "I almost got hit by a car" kind of fear. It's a really heavyweight fear. It's a cold, gray Atlantic Ocean wave that knocks you off your feet and fills your lungs up with salt water, making you gasp for air again and again and again. We know that cancer comes to destroy the body, but the real question is, can you stop it from crushing your soul and stealing your inner peace? I first encountered cancer when I was 21. Mom had breast cancer. It was 1984. Cancer in those days mostly meant death. I returned from university for a long, lonely weekend with my father, and it took a lot of courage to ask him the question, was Mom going to live? He said he didn't know. Mom's cancer haunted me. I mean, I'm her daughter, I have breasts, I didn't know if it was hereditary. And then it got a little bit worse when I turned 28, and I found a lump in my own breast. "It's just a cyst," said the doctor. "Don't worry about it." And so we left it there in my breast. Thanks to Mom's cancer, I started mammograms at age 40, where I guess we kind of measured that lump growing ever so slowly. And then when I was 43, cancer's a bit stealth. I missed an appointment, and it took me an entire year to get back into the system at 44. And that mammogram had enough going on with it to send me up to the cancer center here in Halifax. There's a room in the cancer center, and you get in there, and there's like these breast molds sitting on the shelf. And they've got like different kinds of lumps in them. Like, we're gonna go up and try to test those little breast molds out when we already feel like it's too late because we're here. I remember being in this room with all these women sitting there in silence, and we could hear each other's hearts thumping. Results of that mammogram? Apparently, nothing was wrong. But just in case, they put me on a 6-month recall. Well, I ran out of that place like I was running for my life. Praise the Lord, I didn't have cancer until I did. I noticed after that mammogram that, my breast started to change. I put my arm above my head and it would start to dimple. And I was having trouble, putting my breast in my bra. It was something I knew I should have asked somebody about, but I had a 6-month recall coming up. And so I just waited for the whole 6 months to go by. I mean, I had just landed a great contract with one of my favorite clients. Like, life was good. I didn't want to know more. But then I did go back to that 6-month recall appointment, and that one was the one that set off a lot more alarm bells. And so it turns out there's this really interesting machine at the cancer center, and it's a mammogram. This time you get to sit down, and they freeze your breast, and they put it in that lovely contraption. If you're a woman, you know what I'm talking about. And they shoot needles into the lump, in my case, 15. And I remember feeling warm blood dripping into my dress pants. And my mind left the room, and I remember thinking, how was I going to tell Mom about this? There's a lot of shame in cancer. So it was, in fact, confirmed. I had breast cancer. The most excruciating place to be when you learn you have a cancer diagnosis is when you know you have a cancer diagnosis, and then you've got to wait for treatment to begin. In my case, it was a full 2 months. I was lightheaded and nauseous and weak, and the only way I could escape the knowledge of what was going on was to watch television. And the show would be over, and I'd feel light and unburdened, and then I'd think, there's something really bad going on in my life. Like, what is it? And then I would remember, and that wave would rush all over me again. The next worst thing about having a cancer diagnosis is telling the people you love. My husband found out on a voice message that I had breast cancer. He was out of town. I guess I couldn't wait to talk to him live. And I don't even have any memory of this. He told me about this when I was writing the story. Cancer will make you do insane and thoughtless things like that. We agreed, my husband and I, that I would tell each of our children, and I decided I would tell them each alone. When I told my 14-year-old son, he said to me, "Mom, you're going to be okay, and your faith is going to see you through this." When my words left my mouth towards my 12-year-old son, it's like a movie in slow motion, and they struck him in the chest, and I can still see him falling backwards ever so slowly into the kitchen chair. Later that same day, my daughter came to visit. I was sitting on a couch. She was wrapped in my university blanket, was twice the size of her. And when I told her that I had to lose my breast, her eyes got really big. And it was like she knew at that young age that a female breast was such a critical thing to lose. And she burst into tears, and we cried for the next half hour. Life felt like carnage everywhere at this point. Like, thanks to cancer, I've lost the dream contract, and now my husband gets to carry the whole load. He gets to carry his work. He gets to deal with my lost income. He has to look after the kids. He has to do all their activities. He has to look after the home, and he has to look after me. Like, it's a lot. So I started to have this moment of realizing, well, this is your life. Like, suck it up. This is where we're going. What do you have to do? I had another client that I had to call to say, listen, I can't work for you for the next while. And she said to me, well, like, what's the communications plan? And that triggered my instincts as a public relations professional. I had an Oprah aha moment, and I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to control the hell right out of this. So when I began, the first thing I did was I realized I'm a word person. I'm a writer. And so the first thing I decided to do was, if I was going to get control of cancer spelled reality, F-E-A-R, I had to conquer the disease of language. I had to not let that word have power in my life. So I decided to draw a line in the cells of my body, and I never said again that I had cancer, but that I had a cancer diagnosis. It's a disease. It wasn't my identity. Secondly, like all good public relations practitioners, I had to control the message. So I told people, you don't have permission to share my news. And then I said, you know, it's my story, and I get to tell it when and where and how I want to. But you know, I know the grapevine's going to catch up eventually, so if somebody asks you, you don't have to lie. And in the same vein with our children, we decided that we would try to keep the word cancer in our home as long as possible. So we told them, you can tell anybody that you want to tell, but you might want to leave it here inside these four walls so that when you go out the front door, you're free to be who you are as people at school and wherever else you are. People have a habit of dumping cancer death stories on people, including kids. The third thing I decided to do was to control the process. I decided, though, in this, that I would have authentic relationships with everybody who was in the healthcare system working with me. I didn't want to be the breast in exam room 4. I wanted to be me, and I wanted them to know me so that they would care for me and help me along the journey. Another one of my PR friends at the time was married to a doctor, and I was trying to navigate some stuff with her, and she said, look, this is what you really need to know. The system is built for efficiencies. It's not built for individuals. You go figure out what you want, and then you go get it. That was a really important piece of information because since the beginning, I was told I had to have a mastectomy right off the top. And I always felt that that was like it was like archaic. It was medieval. Like, it's like we're still cutting body parts off people to help save their lives. And so I had become, in that little bit of time, obsessed with the reality and the practicalities of being lopsided. What the hell was I going to put in that empty bra cup? Women told me they put cotton balls and socks and birdseed in those cups. Was I going to get a weighted prosthetic mold? Was I going to ask for a double mastectomy so that everything would be symmetrical? None of those things satisfied me. I wanted the gold standard. Like, I wanted a mastectomy with an immediate breast reconstruction afterwards, which means I would go to the OR table with a diseased breast, and I would wake up with a perky new one, and I'd have a tummy tuck to boot. They're like, don't tell me there's not a silver lining to having breast cancer. That request was flatly denied. Apparently, we didn't have enough information. And so I spent the next 8 months going against the system. I kept my golf ball-sized lump in my breast, and I carried on. One of my doctors heard me and said, you can have chemo first, we'll see if we can destroy the lump. And so normally, when you have cancer, you usually start with surgery, then you have chemo, then you have radiation, and then, if you still want reconstruction, you can have it at the end. And I know it's between 2 and 5 years that you'll have to wait, which kind of puts you on hold for a long time in the process. So we started with this chemo, and the chemo destroyed the lump completely. And it was like, we beat it, we're there. And then we had surgery, and then we found out that there was still cancer in my breast. And worse, the cancer had gone into my lymph nodes. And worse, the lymph nodes had gone into my bloodstream. And so suddenly we found ourselves at stage 3 cancer. There's only 4 stages of cancer. The last one usually ends in death. So the doctors were all freaking out at this point. I had to have that mastectomy. At this point, I was really tired. I was heartbroken. I mean, I'm a PR girl. The plan is now not going to plan. This is not good. And I felt really judged for being so vain that I was hanging on to a diseased breast because I didn't want to be lopsided. A lot of people at that time told me I was jeopardizing my life, the doctors, my family, and my friends. It was serious. So on the worst day, that night, I crawled into bed with my husband, and he reached over and he held my hand. It was a really intimate and deeply comforting gesture. We're not particularly affectionate, so it had that much more meaning to me. And he said to me, it's okay to lose your breast. Maybe now you can compete in the Paralympics. I have to tell you, we giggled our heads off for the next 10 minutes. I'm sure that's not a politically correct thing to say, but it was just the thing I needed, the humor I needed, and honestly, it helped me move to accepting that that would be my new reality. A few days later, I got a phone call from an oncologist telling me he had arranged for a meeting for me to get to a plastic surgeon within a few days. I went to see the plastic surgeon, and I asked him, like, how soon can you do this? Because already we are so pushing the time between cancer and time, which are just not the best of friends. And he said, I think I can get you in about 4 weeks' time. Okay. I went to my surgeon, and I said to my surgeon, okay, so the plastic surgeon, she said, what did he say? I said, well, he could get me in 4 weeks' time. She said, girlfriend, you go get what you want. She said, I can't find you a bed, so I can't get you a mastectomy for 4 weeks. So that was the miracle that happened. And I want to tell you that in 2 weeks' time, on November the 13th, 2024, it marks 16 years since I had a diseased breast replaced by a beautiful, perky new one with a tummy tuck. And it's thanks to the doctors who listened to me as a person and not the breast in exam room 4 that I have no scars across my chest and I have no birdseed in my bra. And I can now take a 4-letter word like F-E-A-R and turn it into 5, P-E-A-C-E, peace.